gets the most. That's when it gets the most twisted. Is when you're in the midst, when you've been blessed with an opportunity, and you somehow think that it was about the opportunity when you get there, and not actually about the people who are there. It's like so many moments, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, of like walking into God-ordained opportunities, things that you know are from the Lord, and you get there and you're maybe excited about what you get to do, and then there's like a person, and you're like, oh, this is why we're here. Like, this is actually why we had to do this, is because this person needed Jesus. Like, he wanted to love them. He was jealous for them. And so he had me come all the way to this thing by way of this connection and here, because he just wanted to say something to this person. And so I love it, like in so many of these drivers, like you said, it's not that opportunity is wrong, or like it's not that the over blank is wrong. It's when it's misappropriated, or when we put it in the wrong order, or it's the wrong priority. The relationship is unto, or the opportunities are unto something. Especially when we're saying presence over performance, when we're saying we've heard God and obeyed, and we're just doing what the Father is doing. Whatever he's doing, there's always going to be a person that he's wanting to love on through it,
Hi everyone, my name's Cheyenne. Welcome to the AXL podcast. AXL Creative Co exists to equip and empower sons and daughters to advance the kingdom of heaven through their creative expressions. In this season of the podcast, we are exploring our drivers. So we've gathered leaders in our community to share what they're experiencing through applying these drivers to their everyday lives. Let's jump in.
Well, welcome everyone to another episode of the AXL podcast. Super excited to be here. Super excited to have you guys. AXL exists to equip and empower sons and daughters to advance the kingdom of heaven through their creative expression. And today we're going to be talking about our drivers. This series, we're actually delving into our drivers and what our drivers are, our unique characteristics, or what sets AXL apart from other kingdom creative communities or creative communities in general. So today we're talking about relationship over opportunity. I love this driver, and before we delve into it, let's go around the room and introduce ourselves. My name is Angela.
My name is Jasmine.
My name is Jonathan.
My name is Dariel.
My name is Ezra.
My name is Jillian.
So excited to have you guys. Thanks for introducing yourself. I'm excited to dive into this driver. I think it's important. Like I said, the driver today is relationship over opportunity. But before going off into a tangent or really just diving in, I want to give the listener a chance to understand what we mean about relationship over opportunity as it pertains to the kingdom or being a son and daughter in the realm of creativity. So I just want to open up the floor and just ask you guys, what does relationship over opportunity even mean?
Well, I would just say, I think there's a lot of facets to it, but what comes to mind for me is a lot of times in a creative space, there's just going to be opportunities come. There's going to be things always being presented. And I would say in the world, it's very easy to choose those opportunities before you choose the relationships, the people that you're building with, the community that you're called to, the friendships that God has called you to, or even just seeing people in general. And sometimes we can almost bulldoze through relationships to try to get the thing that we feel like we should have, or we have a right to because we're creative or whatever it is. But we're just saying, as kingdom creatives, we always choose relationship over opportunity. We choose to steward the people that God has entrusted us with in our lives more than we choose or over choosing the thing, the winning success opportunities that are put in front of us.
Yeah, that's good.
One of the things that it makes me think about is almost like with relationship over opportunity, it almost feels like something familiar versus something new. And I think very often with opportunities, it's like when I think of opportunities, I think of oh my gosh, it's this project or it's working with this person and it's something that I'm not familiar with at all.
Good.
Versus a relationship that has been built over a long period of time that you have grown to be comfortable with.
Oh, yeah.
And in a way, by saying relationship over opportunity, you're really trying to honor what's kind of been built there or what you're building. So like, I think of my family and my kid, like my wife and my kids, my family. And when I was on my own, it was super easy for an opportunity to come up and just be like all about it.
Yeah.
But we had kids young, and that was a very clear filter for whether I take on a job or not, based on how much time that was going to take. And so I think in those times, it's always a measure, for me at least, it's always a measure of, whether the opportunity is worth losing on some of that family time, because it's all kind of connected for me in this season.
Wow.
But yeah.
That's good.
I think what's cool about this driver is it's not saying relationship, not opportunity.
Right.
It's relationship over opportunity.
Yeah.
Both are important, but when given the choice or given that sort of, like you were saying, Jonathan, like when there's a deciding factor of, am I going to value this person or this moment or this opportunity?
Yeah.
I think it's choosing the thing that will last forever. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
So
people last
good.
forever.
Yeah.
I had a friend in high school, and he printed this shirt that said "People last forever," and it stuck with me because that's what we're investing in when we're choosing a relationship over an opportunity, especially when we think about opportunity in the world's eyes. Is we're choosing the thing that will last forever, and we're storing up treasures in heaven.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Those are the treasures that moth and rust won't destroy. So it's something that phrase alone has just been such like a driver, for lack of better words, for me. just since hearing that, it's a filter that I kind of process my decisions through, like Jonathan was saying.
That's so good.
I love that. And I love that what you're saying, it's not that opportunities are bad, but there is something about what the Lord loves and who the Lord loves and his people. And so us getting the heart of the Father to be able to love people as the opportunities come, and us being able to filter out what those are. It leads me to this question that, like, we asked the AXL community at large in the beginning, and it was worded a little bit different, but I want to word it with with relationship in mind. Like, how was relationship affected by the fall? Takes 170 seconds to form an answer. I think it's a question.
I mean, I think out the gate, when Adam was confronted, he automatically betrayed, like as far as relationship goes. I think there's this, like, even in relationship over opportunity, it's like on a personal level sort of thing when there's an opportunity, and it almost becomes an opportunity to look out for oneself. Like in that, I mean, in that moment, that as far as relational, I'm thinking that's the first thing that happened between man was that, no, it was me. It was Eve, sort of thing, and that compromise on that immediately. But
It makes me think of a facet of it that I don't think we talk about a whole lot, and that's relationship with the Lord. But it's like sometimes if we're not careful, we compromise relationship with God for an opportunity. We'll find ourselves in positions to pursue creative opportunities and things that actually make us sacrifice or compromise our convictions or things that God has already spoken to us about. And so he's like, hey, I don't want you to do this, this, and this. I want you to focus on this. And then we get an opportunity, like, actually, I'm going to do all the things that God told me not to do because the money is just right for this situation. Or this connection could just open up so many other things. And then we end up, it's affecting our intimacy with the Lord, I don't know, in that scenario, their opportunity that was presented to them by the snake resulted in a distance between him and God.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
in that relationship forever. You know, or
Until
okay.
glory.
Yeah, so Jesus, you know. That's a different podcast.
Yeah,
you
right.
But yeah, we don't talk about that a lot, but I think that's real
Yeah.
in relationship over opportunity as well.
Yeah, that's good. And oftentimes, almost every time, how our relationship with the Lord is how we are going to display our relationship with people. So if we're not making a priority to make sure that we're in healthy relationship with the Father, or like being obedient to those things that he's asking us to do, or standing in our convictions, it's so easy to look at a person and do the same thing and just compromise a little. I know they don't like when I do, or I know when, you know, and just compromise because we are already doing it in our relationship with the Father. So I think that's beautiful.
The what comes to mind for me is, like, as you're processing that, like the lie that the serpent said to Eve was, "You will be like God." And that's the same like lie that comes not in every opportunity, but that he can use to drive opportunity over relationship, is that by taking this and sacrificing the relationship that God has ordained, that you will be like God. And there's this like Lucifer-esque pride that can raise up, and this picture of ourselves as being more important than our brother and our sister, that really leads to further division and further accusation of the brethren when we choose to listen to that lie instead of prioritizing the relationship, which is what Jesus and God in the garden was prioritizing.
Wow. So good. So good. Deacon, you have anything to say?
She called him Deacon.
I called him Deacon.
Wow.
He's the deacon here.
Lord have mercy. It's processing.
Yeah.
It's a lot of things to unpack. I think kind of what Ezra was talking about made me think about how it's important to steward opportunity. I mean, opportunities to grow in God, with God in relationship. And I think about Solomon, like he stewarded the opportunity in the moment with intimacy with the Lord, and the Lord's communicating back to him, and he's responding back. But he stewarded the relationship with the Lord. He stewarded even what the Lord had poured and gave him, the wisdom and all the things that came with it. But I feel like one of the things that stood out to me in that space, and I think about it every day as a leader, as a father, as a husband, in the same way as Solomon was, is he stewarding the relationship, and is it stewarding a relationship becoming so familiar that you kind of like start shifting into opportunity, the opportunities that relationships bring you, and just being aware of your patterns and habits, and just going in, I think, a little bit deeper and being more intentional.
So good. Jillian.
Yeah. I mean, I think in regards to the fall, it's like with relationship, there was like just separation, you know?
Yeah.
And there had to be a way to reconnect and have that intimacy again with God. And it's like a deep thing to process.
Yeah.
She hit us with a deep one first.
Yeah.
I do think it's interesting that I feel like out the gate, the Lord gave Adam an opportunity, sort of thing. There, like his approach to it was not like, "Yo, I know what you did. What are you doing? I told you." Like he came to the table asking questions. Like he came ready to build relationship and to give Adam an opportunity to draw close. Like you were saying, from the standpoint of his priorities were Adam in relationship with him, and digging in deeper. He didn't immediately be like, "Where are you? Get out of here!" And kick him out of the garden straight out the gate. He wanted to, build that relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that also, I just see that pattern consistently even throughout the Bible. Like, if I think about the next story, I think couple of stories down when you're looking at Cain and Abel.
Mm-hmm.
The Lord's responding like in relationship to Cain, asking where's his brother. Like it's just really interesting that God, even like all throughout the Bible, is constantly wanting to build relationship.
Yeah.
When we take opportunity over it.
Wow.
So even like processing that now in all that we do, like what things do we move forth in opportunity that the Lord is sitting to respond back with relationship in on a daily basis.
That's so good.
Wow.
I kept hearing this phrase when we were processing, like getting ready for this conversation. I just heard the phrase like relationship is the opportunity of heaven. Like when we are sitting across the table from someone working on a project,
Yes.
whatever it is, I had a pastor who had this little plaque on his desk, and he said, it said, the person sitting across from me is more important than the project that we're working on.
Yes.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
And I think
Yes.
like heaven, the opportunity at hand, like it is an opportune, like that's the root word of that word, you know?
Yeah.
It's a moment. I think about like the way that God uses opportunities, but his opportunities, the way that he's always like structuring those opportunities is for relationship.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like Esther had an opportune moment to go
Yeah.
before the king,
Yeah.
but that was for the purpose of saving God's people.
Yeah.
The opportunities are for people,
Mm-hmm.
and they are the opportunity. The relationships are the opportunity of heaven
Yeah.
when we think about it that way. You know?
And I think that's when it gets the most. That's when it gets the most twisted.
Yeah.
Is when you're in the midst, when you've been blessed with an opportunity, and you somehow think that it was about the opportunity when you get there, and not actually about the people who are there.
Yep.
You
Yeah.
know, it's like
Yeah.
so many moments, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, of like walking into God ordained opportunities, things that
Yeah.
you know are from the Lord, and you get there and you're maybe excited about what you get to do, and then there's like a person, and you're like, oh, this is why we're here. Like, this is actually why we had to do this, is because
Yeah.
this person needed Jesus. Like,
Yeah.
he wanted to love them. He was jealous for them. And so
Yeah.
he had me come all the way to this thing by way of this connection and here, because he just wanted to say something to this person. And so I love it. Like in so many of these drivers, like you said, it's not that opportunity is wrong, or like it's not that the over blank is wrong. It's when it's misappropriated, or when we put it in the wrong order, or it's the wrong priority.
Yeah.
The relationship is unto, or the opportunities are unto something.
Yeah.
Especially when we're saying presence over performance, when we're saying we've heard God and obeyed, and we're just doing what the Father is doing. Whatever he's doing, there's always going to be a person that he's wanting to love on through it, you know?
And I think it's interesting because like how opportunity becomes perverted is when it is that misprioritized. You know, when we don't recognize that the Father has a heavenly, what did you say it was, Ezra?
Relationships are the opportunity of heaven.
That's so
Yeah,
good.
yeah, I love that. Like, especially when we don't see it like that, we can just miss it, you know. And so I want to go back to even what you were saying, Dariel, about just so many times in the Bible where the Lord was giving us a chance to have relationship. And I think even in this driver, we can find and we can look at Jesus and see how he was in relationship with people. Your story right now, or this example that you were just saying, reminded me of the woman at the well. You know, how there was an opportunity for Jesus to keep going into the town with the disciples and get food, and you know, there was just an opportunity for him to keep going, but he took a moment to see somebody in the midst of something that, you know, like he's hot, he's tired. It says that he was weary, you know, when he was sitting there. Like, how many of us have ever been like annoyed or like, you know, hot,
Thirsty,
something, hungry, and somebody is just there, and you know the Lord is highlighting them, and you're like, God, my gosh, not right now, Lord. I just, can I get food first? Can I get a cup of coffee before they start talking to me, before I begin my day? And Jesus modeled that even in the midst of that he wanted to use that moment to build relationship with somebody.
it's so good.
And I think that's when we're talking about relationship over opportunity, we're saying even until like the opportunity for my flesh to be satisfied, you know, like for me to just sit and chill or get some coffee or have my headphones in. Like I want to find you, Jesus, and I want to model how you perfectly modeled relationship to minister to somebody.
Yeah, that story makes me think of all these other Bible stories. Like it's like lighting up all these other moments of like, oh my gosh, he did this so much, you know. Like it makes me think of the loaves and the fish and how they needed food for all these people, and they take the lunch from this little boy and use the lunch to feed all these people, you know, and God multiplies the food. It just made me think, like, man, Jesus could have did that in any way. Like, he could have fed them in so many other ways. But there's this little boy that we probably don't think about a whole lot, that his life was probably radically shook because they chose Jesus, they chose to use his lunch. To feed all these people, and he got to see it happen from his lunch, you know, like, but he didn't have to do it through this little boy's lunch, you know. And so anyway, just that, you're just making me think of all of these things that, because sometimes relationship over opportunity, it feels inconvenient. There may be like a faster or seemingly better way to accomplish something than by pursuing the relationship, you know. In that story, I'm sure Jesus could have got water fast if he wanted to, you know, like just could have had some water, moved on. You know, they could have got food for people. He could have multiplied it just like that, you know what I mean? Or took something else and multiplied it, or made it come out of thin air. But he chose people, and it wasn't necessarily convenient or faster or easier.
That's so good.
It makes me think of the shepherd that goes after the one sheep.
Yes.
You know, like it can seem insignificant or small or not important, or like, let's just move on. And it's like the one, you know? There's so many stories that come to mind.
I think it also presents, when all these stories like are highlighted, I feel like it presents an opportunity to, when God wants to build in a space of relationship, to grow, that it's a place for us to posture our hearts to understand what the pacing is for our purpose. Because if I think about stories, I'm thinking about Hosea and Gomer, I'm thinking about Job, I'm thinking about this churches in Revelation. Like there's so many opportunities that God responded differently to the pacing of the heart of man or church or whatever it is in that hour, in that moment. So it's just being intentional to ask the Lord, like, what is the pace? Like, what is your heart, so I can be in unity with you?
Wow.
That's so good.
That's so good. Were you going to say
No,
something?
go for it. Yeah.
I was just going to say, before you said that, I just felt like I just heard like slow down. Like it's like slowing down. A lot of the times, you know, like,
So
and that pace, like, I feel like it's so important. It's like the kingdom pace is almost different. And it's not that you don't move fast at times or accomplish a lot, but it's like, I guess it's awareness or being in tune and being like available to slow down. I was thinking about how it's so funny how I feel like I can like want to get to the end of a project or like rush or like let's accomplish things, and like I can have that driven personality sometimes where I'm like, let's just get it done, like, you know what I mean? So it can feel counterproductive slowing down and you know, taking a route that doesn't make as much sense. And it's funny how sometimes, and I'll speak for myself, like it can feel like we want to advance the kingdom quickly and like get things
So
done
funny.
for God fast.
So funny.
And like it's like I want to obey God fast, and I'm going to do it good, and I'm going to do it right, and like let's go. You know what I mean? And so it's like you're almost like checking things off to like do it for him, and you're like, look what I did for you, you know, like, and you want him to be proud. But I think like you can get lost along the way, and you can like do it in a way that like isn't healthy, or like burnout, or burning bridges along the way, or like not letting people be seen around you, or like missing what mattered at the end of that advancing the kingdom. Like advancing the kingdom is people. It's people. That's all it is. You know what I mean?
That's
and so
the
it's like,
actual goal.
if you miss people along the way of the end result being people, then you missed it.
Yeah,
Like, you know?
so true.
Wow.
Yeah.
Think about like Jesus again. I mean, it's like the disciples were always saying like, when are you gonna basically like burst into a ball of fire and destroy the Romans and like
Do it.
get us to where we're all know we're gonna be, you know?
You're like,
Yeah.
let's go.
And the whole time he's like, no, let's just like hang out.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
gonna build a table.
Yeah, like I'm gonna take a nap in the boat and you
Yeah.
guys,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and he's just hanging out and like
Wow.
spending time with his disciples and his friends, you know? There's
Yeah.
a scripture in John 17. It's the last time Jesus prays before going like to the garden and, you know, essentially being crucified. And he's talking to the Father and he says, I do not pray for the world, but for those that you have given me. And he's like focusing in on the 12 people that God has given him, that the Father gave him
Wow.
to have relationship with. And for 3 years, he modeled to us what it looked like to, exactly like you're saying, like to walk at that pace, to not walk in, take over, but to have eternity in mind.
Yeah.
And the marathon, eternity is a long time. We've got a long time, you know what I mean? Like, so he's not in a rush, and like these are the things that matter. And the fact that he modeled that for us is wild.
Yeah. Even when he came back, so he dies, resurrects, comes back, and he or I shouldn't say comes back, he comes back to life is what I should say. He comes and does breakfast with Peter.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like he's on the shore, Peter's on the boat. He's like, hey, cast your net over there to the other side. And Peter looks and realizes it's him, you know, until he comes back. And says they go on a walk. And that's the whole moment where he's like, Peter, do you love me? He asks Peter 3 times.
Yeah.
Peter responds. And then it says he makes them breakfast.
Oh my gosh.
Like, you know, just in light of what you're saying, just that pace of Jesus. Like, yeah, I just roasted him to death. Let's have some fish.
Yeah.
Let's eat together. Like,
So good.
Yeah.
It's not what you think the first thing would be.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's not what you think.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
imagine like how he modeled that investment in just the 12, how that ripple effect, like it he's the most famous name in the world, Jesus, you know, from what seemed so seemingly small. Like this is a small, like Jesus could have done, he had the potential to do so much and to grow in fame and to, you know, he had the potential, but he modeled for us to invest in what seemed little, or like even at a time he's like, how much longer shall I be with you? And you just not get, you know, like, you know, there are moments where I'm sure he was like, okay, y'all, we've been together, we've been doing this for 3 years. You're still asking, you know, but he modeled that, and it had way more of an impact than we probably think in our natural sense it could.
I think even the parallels in these biblical stories shows like God's like investment for a relationship with man. When I think about Adam in the cool of the day of walking, to be like, and he's coming back like, who told you you were naked? To be in the space of walk with Peter after resurrecting, like the eternal process of relationship that God has is like trumps any process of opportunity that we have in our finite minds. So just taking the time to tap in to hear what the God is saying or reading from the scriptures, like it'll just draw you into a space. And we only see through a glass darkly.
Yeah.
So like it's really special to just be in that moment, and just that's why the pacing is so important. So you can capture it and just pause in those moments and realize how macro God is, but how he cares about every small detail of how he designed us to build a relationship with each other and him.
Wow. I think about how Jesus even like forsook the opportunity to be offended at Peter in a moment. He decided, hey, this relationship's more important than you, say, you know. And he knew before saying that on this rock I shall build my church. You know, he knew what was gonna happen. He's like, Peter, you actually will deny me. I like no, but like there was a moment where like most of us could be offended in a space and just forsake the relationship portion and take the opportunity of offense. But Jesus modeled, I'm not going to take the opportunity to be offended at you. I'm going to take this opportunity to build even more in relationship, walk with you, like sit with you, have breakfast with you. And that should be even with us. Like there's so many moments when we're doing life with people in every sphere where we're going to get hurt, where we're going to get offended, where people will betray us and backstab us, but if we can see it like the Father, to go after the opportunity of relationship over the opportunity of offense, I think that's another perspective in which we can look at relationship over opportunity. Is like, Lord, how do I overcome the offense that my heart wants to take on, and actually see this person as a son, as a daughter, and invest in them, even if it's just in a moment of forgiveness, not necessarily continue like relationship, though it could be that, but more so in a moment of like this we need to have reconciliation because you're my brother, you're my sister, I love you because Jesus loves you, you know. So it's a different perspective on that. I want to ask, if we have, I'm sure we have, how have we've been affected by relationship over opportunity, whether positively or negatively, and then how is like the Father ministered to you when it comes to just this topic?
I mean, one facet that comes to mind for me, just kind of a different angle than, again, some of the things we talked about already, is I think relationship over opportunity also looks like people caring about me more than they care about what they can get from me. And you know, we all have giftings and things that we have to offer in the world, you know, what we can do, if you will. And sometimes people are more concerned with that than actually just us as sons and daughters. And I mean, I'll forever be marked by the way Brad McCoy loved me. And I had just started, actually I met him he's basically my pastor through college, and he's been like a spiritual father in my life for several years. And I met him around the time I started to do music, and I'll just never forget, pretty early on in our relationship, he just told me, he was like, God cares more about your heart than he does your gift, than he does about anything that you can ever do. And was just committed to loving me in that way. And so he celebrated my gifts, but he never let my gifting and what I could do get in the way of challenging me, get in the way of loving me, get in the way of just being in relationship with me, you know? And so I just kind of early on had a bit of a twisted view of what my gifts were, you know. I needed Axel a long time ago for myself, you know. and I just thought I need to do a lot to be loved and to receive affirmation and love. And Brad was one of the first people that was just kind of like, no, put all that down, like just chill, like just chill, just be here, like you don't have to do that, you know. Like I just started doing music, so I'd carry my guitar around everywhere, you know, and I was like you know, just all the time, and he'd just be like, you just put it down. I think it sounded bad a little bit too, so I think that's part of why he asked me to put it down, but I think it was mainly because he wanted me to know I wasn't welcome in the room because of what I could offer. Just because I'm a daughter, because I'm loved, you know? And but that's kind of a different take on it, but like that marked me. Him pursuing relationship with me in that community, receiving me as a person rather than pursuing me as an opportunity for the community.
That's so good. And I think it's so imperative that us as kingdom sons and daughters just know that like we're either going to steward giftings or we're going to steward people, and we have to be able to steward. We can steward both, but it just cannot be, and that's another one of our drivers in another episode, but it cannot be the gifting over the person, over the relationship of the person. And I think as we steward people, naturally the gifting will be stewarded as well. And I just love how that was his heart in that season with you. And I know that that is a big reason why even Axel, like, we have the character over gifting driver, because I mean you've seen it modeled in your own life. So it's beautiful. It's good.
One of the things that I've seen in my life is that relationship breeds opportunity, which then breeds more relationship, and it's kind of this sort of cycle that happens whenever I graduated from Bible school, and I had my video teacher at the time basically reached out to me, and he was like, hey, the Bible school needs a video editor. I know you don't know what you're doing, but you seem like you could, sort of thing. And at the time, I'd moved back to San Antonio, and I was acting youth pastor at a church, and I was burnt out. And the idea of going back to Bible school and getting to be around some of these people that saw something in me was awesome. And so I went back, and with that same guy ended up becoming like one of my mentors at the time. He had his own business, and we would go to breakfast. I think good friends go to breakfast together, like Jesus and Peter, and that relationship was so good for me. He taught me like so much in that time, in that season that I got to spend with him. And shortly after, I got to kind of build a relationship with Ezra. That's where I met Ezra at that job. And Ezra and I have been working together for like over a decade now. And that's been over building a relationship on silly little projects together. But then from getting to have a relationship with Ezra and kind of build together, Ezra was able to introduce me to people that then, like, for years I got to work with. And so it's one of those things that I think that as long as they're in the right order,
that's
like
so good.
they're going to just build on each other.
It's so good.
You're just so good at modeling this as well. Just to like honor you publicly in this little room of 5 people, but also on the podcast and all of it. Like, I am someone who's also benefited from that relationship over opportunity mindset that you carry, and your investment in the relationship in me, again, like you said, like bred opportunities that grew relationships. And it's been, in a very practical sense, it's been very beneficial for us to like invest in relationship with each other, but we never like started with the opportunity in mind. We didn't have any opportunities in mind. There weren't any opportunities back then.
We're not just opportunities.
Trying to make it through a 24-hour edit session at Bible school, whatever. So, and I just see where God has taken our relationship for the past 10 years, and I'm so grateful for it. So thank you for modeling that.
Yeah, it's been fun.
I think adversely, how you're saying relationship breeds opportunity. Like, if you put it in the wrong order, you find a lot of burned bridges in relationships. And I think it's one of the reasons potentially why we see a lot of isolation and loneliness in the creative space is because we've learned, again, like we kind of said it earlier, to just get what we need, like get it, like the hustle, grind, it's a doggy dog world, whoever you gotta beat down to get in the door and do it, you know what I mean? And then you end up burning bridges and relationships that were God ordained. This is actually, for me, like the first time the Lord ever spoke this driver to me was I was at this conference, and this woman, long story short, a friend of mine, this woman came with her friend. I'm friends with both of them. She came with her friend, and she got invited to go backstage, get off campus and connect with like one of the main speakers at this event. And it was like an opportunity of a lifetime, big moment. And I was standing right in front of them, and they rode together to this conference. She got so excited about the opportunity that she looked at the friend that she drove with and said, "I'm sorry, I have to take this opportunity." She says, "You have to find a way to get back home." And she left. And I literally watched her friend just crumble. And I was just like, what just happened? Like, I was so like, it like hit me. And I'm like, Lord, why do it broke my heart. And I was trying to figure out, why did that affect me so deeply just now? Because I wasn't really super close to the girl who was left. And the Lord said that phrase to me, and it just stuck with me. And it was like, this is what happens. Relationships get broken when people choose opportunity over relationships that are God ordained, at the expense of relationships that are God ordained. And so I'm just bringing that adverse to it. Like, they breed opportunities, but when it's out of order, bridges are burned, you know?
And I think why it grieves the Lord's heart so much is because, and I think that you said this, but relationship was not a result of the fall. It was already
there before.
It was there before it, and even with before Adam, there was the relationship between the the Holy Spirit and Jesus and the Lord, the Father, and then there was Adam, and there was a relation. It was holy.
Mm-hmm.
It's a holy thing to be in a relationship. And so when we burn bridges, essentially we're saying this is no longer holy. We're agreeing that relationships are not of the Father or of holy or whatever. I think it grieves him so much because it was not something that came with oh, Adam, you messed up, now you have to be in relationship with one another. It was this was already this was already a thing that the Lord loved so much. He didn't even create the earth without being in relationship. He said, let us make man like us, he understood that there was something about relationship. And I think we have to shift our perspective to see it like the Lord sees it, to see it how the Father saw it before there ever was a fall. Because there's something to that when we can get our perspective. And even what you were saying, the end goal is people. So not seeing people or relationships as this thing that's just getting in the way, but it's holy. It's a holy thing. Yeah. It's good. How can we... Yeah, Father. Say something.
I have something, sure.
Yeah.
On regards to that,
yeah.
Something that I feel like is a recent example of what we're all talking about. So I'm working on a new music project, and excited.
Let's go.
Yeah, and so in doing that, I want to steward it and set deadlines and there are a lot of moving pieces, and so and we have other things going on in our life outside of that, and so even Ezra and I were just looking at the timeline for the whole year and just trying to make the most of our time and everything. And I think in working on a project like that, it can be easy to want to just move through all the projects and all the pieces and the videos and all the launch plan and all that stuff, and even in writing the songs and wanting that process, wanting to get to the end result. And even with friends that we've written songs with, or the producer that we're working with, it's interesting because he has a lot on his plate. And I think I've just been so challenged in stewarding the people, and you can there's this fine line where you can push people to where they are having to meet a deadline and they're burning themselves out. And I think I've been able to be more aware in the seasons when we've burned ourselves out, or we've maybe even been so proud of ourselves for working 100 hours a week, or pulling all these all-nighters and stuff, and it's that thing that's really glorified and glamorized in the world, the hustle and the grind and all of that. And so I think just in this project, it's just really learning to value and care about the people involved and the person, and making sure the people involved in the project are getting to rest and are having time with their family and Sabbath. And there have been times that we've just moved days and canceled days and changed trips, and it's just it's funny because it almost it hurts your flesh, and you're oh, I want to get this done. But I feel just challenged to do it that way this time, and for the process to be different this time. And even we've had conversations, because Ezra and I work together on music and other things, and just that it doesn't look like it did last time, where Ezra's having to work through the night on editing all these videos, and you know what I mean, that it'll look different this time, and even that would be more fun and just healthy.
That's good.
And there would be less turmoil or fights or stress in it, and so I think just stewarding each other better during the process is something that I've really been challenged in. So
it's
so good. That reminds me of a recent scenario that I found myself in. I was working on a project and just had felt led to partner with a certain company to help release the project. And with a new friend that I made who's in the industry, and we're working together on it. And long story short, there's a lot of details that will not go into this podcast. But what happened was I went to release one of the first singles from this project, and I didn't hear from this person for like a few weeks, like in a row, like around the time that we were scheduled to drop the single. And so just as an artist, you know, that is a deeply irritating situation. You know, just a lot of opportunities for my flesh to arise. You know what I'm saying? And so I was deeply irked. I was very bothered by the situation. And every time I would take it to the Lord, like the Lord would remind me of relationship over opportunity. And I'm like, what is that right now? Like, why? How do we do that right now? You know? Right. I'm thinking about the relationship with the listeners of this album is what I'm thinking about. You know?
That relationship is important.
And so, but the Lord just kept kind of just dealing with me in this space, convicting me. And what happened was he led me to pray for this person intentionally. And as I prayed for them, I think there was actually one night where I think it was me and you and your wife, and we just like joined hands and we're like, in the name of Jesus, this project will be released. Like everything fall into place in the name of Jesus, you know. But like Gandalf, Lord of the Rings. You know, and it was crazy. The next day, I got a text message from this person, and he was just super vulnerable and was like, I'm not great, you know. And so we jumped on a phone call, and it was the moment where I had a decision if I was going to respond like an artist working with like a guy on, you know, doing the project, or if I was just going to be a son or daughter talking to a son, talking to a sibling in the faith, and just like, hey, how are you doing? And it was, I had to make a decision. And thankfully by the grace of God, because in my flesh, I was not there, but the Lord helps us, you know, and I just felt this grace to love him in that moment. And we got on the phone. I was like, how are you doing? And it was this beautiful conversation where he was just like super authentic. I was like, I'm not doing good. There's a lot on my plate. I'm a little overwhelmed, and kind of just shared all these things that were happening. And it allowed me to say, hey, we have this driver of relationship over opportunity. And so based off of that driver, our relationship is actually being damaged right now because of the way this project is being stewarded. It's in the way of our relationship. Because I can't fully like be present with you just as a sister because my project's in the way. So why don't we get the project out of the way and let me just love on you and help you and your family and figure out how I can serve you guys. And it was a really hard moment because in the natural, he had all the things that I felt like I needed for the project to work, for the opportunity to like make it. You know what I mean? And so we put the project to the side, and we had signed a contract. So he actually let me out of the contract,
which is wild,
so that we could pursue relationship and health for him and his family. And then we began to do that. And God like taught me so much through that scenario and gave me wisdom and how to release the song, and God breathed on it, and it was awesome. But it wasn't at the expense of a son that just needed to be loved and needed somebody to stop and say, hey, what's the issue? You know, and the reality is there's so many people in his life, artists that he's been working with, that could care less about how he's doing because they have a project in the way. And so I know you're dying. I know you having anxiety attacks, whatever it may be, but like, it's really not important because we got to get this deadline. You know, and so I'm just thankful for, you know, for a community where we can have these conversations and be challenging each other because it's real. Like when you're in the midst of a project that you know is even from God, you know, you're like, for the sake of the kingdom, die, you know, like get out of the way. And it's just not right, you know, like that's not actually the kingdom. Like you said earlier, I love how you said that earlier. Like we're missing the actual point along the way. So that was just an example that came to mind.
That's so good. And I think it's so cool that the Lord was even like preparing you, like, hey, it's relationship over opportunity. And you're like, what? there's actually no connection to make a relationship because he's not even answering his phone right now. But like the Lord was preparing you for this moment. And I think like as we have these conversations, we're all going to probably very soon, if we haven't already and continue the rest of our life, come into a space to where we're challenged to choose the relationship. And I think even more so, not just as creatives, but as sons and daughters, we have to find the Father's heart in every situation and find the relationship, the opportunities for relationship, rather than the opportunities to advance in our kingdom or in our ministry or in our artistry or in our, you know, but like I think it's always looking for moments. Last night I was working with this guy and a good friend of mine in LA. We've been writing a song together for the past probably a month, and it just was random, but I felt like it was the Lord that brought this opportunity to come to pass. And this was the first time that I actually sat down and asked the Lord for his heart for his son, because I had a relationship with the other girl, and so we've been doing life together for 3-4 years. So you know, I'm like, okay, we're just doing life. And I had this moment. I was like, there was like 10 minutes before the session started, and I was like, I didn't do my part. I should probably spend the 10 minutes to do my part so that they don't think I'm lazy, you know, or whatever it was. And I just asked the Lord for wisdom in a moment. He's like, can you pray with me for 5? And I was like, but then I only have 5, Lord. And you know, I want to impress that, you know, just like performance. I was having to like debunk all of these things in my heart. And the Lord took this moment, and I started praying. And all of a sudden I got this heart, and at first I had like this gratefulness for this opportunity, and I was like, what is this what is even this opportunity if it's not about the people on the other end? And I just like all of a sudden got the heart of the Father for this guy, and he's incredible. He if he doesn't know Jesus, he has the heart. Like it's just incredible. I don't know him that well. He's from Japan. There's like it's cool though, like what the Lord is doing. But in the session, he started eating, and it was like random. We were like deep in the session and 2 hours, and he started eating, and we're on a Zoom call. And I just had this urge to ask him what his favorite food was. I was like, blah, blah, blah. What's your favorite food? And he starts going off, and like we start this beautiful conversation that was just like, it was wild. Like it ended up in like, oh, how are we all going to meet each other? You're going to go to LA. Actually, I'm already going to go to LA. You know, it was like this beautiful moment where we were able to build relationship, but I think I would have missed it had I kept seeing it as an opportunity. Like, wow, this is a great opportunity for us to get the right to write the song together. And what I think relationship is, or what I think this opportunity is going to breed, is going to be for the listener rather than for the person that's actually on the call that I'm talking to, right in front of. I'm like, oh no, people are gonna get blessed, and that's those are the relationships that I want to steward, you know. And it's like I will never see everyone who listens to that song, but I can see the son right here, right now. And it was just so beautiful that the Lord took a moment last night with me to just, even before this podcast, like wasn't even thinking about the podcast at that time, because I was thinking about the song and how I failed to bring my part. But it was just so cool to see that modeled. And like, I think it's because it was birthed from this community, or like us having conversations, to where it went from a head thing to a heart thing, to this is how I want to live. I want to live a relationship over opportunity lifestyle, and model after Jesus. So I think there's so many moments, like I said, where God is preparing us for the moments to be like, okay, it took me 3 sessions. I pray that next time it'll take me 1 session. The first session, to where I'm like, okay, what is this for? You know, it's not for the listener. It's actually for the son, you know. And so I think we're constantly, as we're diving into this, growing in this space. How can we grow? Let me form the question. As individuals, how do you guys think that you can grow in this driver today, relationship over opportunity?
I got this picture when you guys were talking about it. I saw this picture of like the Golden Gate Bridge and how it connects 2 bodies of land that otherwise would not be able to, you know, connect. They would, but it'd be challenging. And I just thought about the fact that, like, in the idea of a relationship essentially being a bridge between two people, like the relationship is the thing between us that we have to steward, you know? Like,
Wow.
it's something that, and the strongest bridges take a little bit longer to build, but the strongest bridges are not just for the builders, they're for the people who will be affected, right? So like the bridge and the relationship that I build with Jasmine, with you, with whoever, is not just for us, it's for the generation to come.
Wow.
It's for our kids, it's for our, you know what I mean? It's for the people around us who need that bridge to exist so they can get between point A and point B quicker.
Wow.
And I've just been so impacted by, someone mentioned this in a small group that I was a part of recently, saying he was not from America. He was Russian, and he was sharing from the perspective of a Russian coming into America and seeing how selfish and individualist and how focused we are on our timeline. And he brought this awareness and this revelation of God being a generational God. He's referenced over and over in the Bible as the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He's the God of me. He's the God of my son. He's the God of my grandson, you know, and of my grandfather, and vice versa, and all that.
Yeah.
And I think that the relationships that we build, if we see them as bridges, that I don't want to just build rope bridges, you know what I mean? I don't want to build these little bridges that one storm comes and it's torn apart. Like, I want to build something that will outlast me and will serve the people to come.
Wow. Yeah. What you were saying, Ezra, just reminded me of like how I watch you and Pastor Ev in your relationship, and how like you guys have a relationship, but how it ministers to so many people at large by just getting to view it, and like that's what God's heart is, and like obviously eventually, and when you have kids and so on and so forth. But like I just love what you're saying of like relationships aren't even like, and sometimes you can get that way, and that's where like codependency is built, and that's where it's like it's us against the world, and you know like it's like, man, no, it's more than just us. Everything is always going to be more than just us. It is for us and those around us, you know. And so seeing it like that even just puts a different weight on when we're like how we're stewarding relationships. You know, it's like, oh no, I want to forgive, not just because it's good for me and the Father said, but because I know that there's an assignment and there's weight to just us being in relationship with each other, you know.
That's good. I love that. I think when you were talking, I thought of the 2 put 10,000 to flight. The idea of like multiplication through relationship. And I think even when we were talking earlier, I was thinking about, it's one of the things I guess that I'm learning is it's not so much what I can do, but who I can do it with, sort of thing. Because I think, and just in my journey right now, I'm a lot less interested in like what the project is for me, for whatever reason. Maybe it's just because I've been doing it for over a decade now, that like the project is a lot less interesting, and it's more so the people that I get to do it with, because that's ongoing, because that's building, you know, versus for me in the filmmaking world, everything is so temporal. Like it's only for a season, and depending on what it is, you know, it could be outdated within a month, sort of thing, or even seasonal with like, you know, the times changing. Whereas, you know, putting, almost like we talked about before, putting it secondary and primarily focusing on those relationships, like it just multiplies what that product could be, I guess.
Yeah.
So
I would say personally, it took me a long time to think of something. I got there. And I would say, because I just got married. You know what I'm saying? Just got married recently. But when I got married, during our wedding, all of our favorite people came.
Mm-hmm.
And from every season of my life for the last couple decades where people were just there, and it was so beautiful. And it made me just thankful for the relationships that God has formed, but it also made me aware of, in this new season that I'm in marriage, how much I need to reassess my relationships and where I'm investing relationally. Because me and my husband spending a lot of time together because we got learning how to do this married situation, and it's awesome. But so I need to be more intentional about other relationships and make sure I have the right relationships in place and the right priorities in place. And so I try to seasonally do something called relationship inventory, where I just look at people I'm pouring into, my friendships, and people who are pouring into me, and assess all of those relationships and ask God about every one of those categories and then steward what he says. And I haven't done it since I got married. So this question made me realize, I need to do that now. So thank you for your ministry.
You're welcome. Wow, that's good. That's so good. I love that relationship inventory. Okay, well, I just want to thank you guys so much for joining and being a part of this episode. This was awesome. I really hope that I know that the listener will take away so much from this. And we were supposed to end on a challenge, so I'm going to challenge them. So I just want to give this challenge to whoever is listening, to assess in their life how they are operating in this value. Are you operating in the value of choosing relationship over opportunity? And if you're not, if you're being honest and you're not, ask the Lord how you can start, how you can begin. It's not that if you haven't been doing it, it's not you're failing and you're not going to get into heaven. No, it's not that. It's just asking the Lord simply, how can I apply this value? How can I apply this driver to my life? So thank you guys so much. Love you guys. Until next time. Bye. Bye. Yay. Awesome.
Thank you for joining us. We pray that this episode leads to some deep reflection and prayer on how you can apply these drivers to your craft. If you'd like to keep up with what's happening at AXL, follow us on social media at AXL Creative Co. Thanks again for joining us. See you next time.
What's up, guys? My name is Angela.
My name is Zach.
Hey guys, I'm Cheyenne.
Hey, what's up? I'm Chris. Thank you so much for watching the
AXL Creative Co channel.
Now, before you go deep dive into celebrity home tours, make sure that you hit our subscribe button. We'll see you again soon.